little bit back. So what I'm speaking today, it's of course about research and science, and I was thinking to address that to patients and patient organizations. And as I told you, I am a PhD biologist and I work in science for 20 years. But on top of that, something happened with my my slides. Okay. So on top of that, I was a caregiver for my sisters. I think for 3 years I took care of her, and I was fighting with the medical teams for the right medicines and so on. You know how it is when you are a caregiver, for sure. So what I realized in that time was that having this background, being a scientist, helped me personally and helped my sister to understand, to have a let's say, smoother talk with the medical team, to understand the medical terms and to understand when they are referring to the science. And was also a method, even if I was a scientist, was for me a method to detect the pseudoscience, because there are a lot of people that they want to give you advice about what drug you should take, what kind of diet you should go. So at the beginning, everything is very confusing, even for the best of us. So I think having this background helped me to detect very fast to make the difference between science and pseudoscience. And of course, later, when everything got very serious on my sister, that helped me very much to find a good clinical trial for her, and together to choose the best treatment. And if you are a patient advocate, and I think some of you here are, you are aware of the fact that we are still losing patients. We in melanoma, at least, we still lose like 50% of patients, despite of the new development like immunotherapy and target therapy, which many cancer now have as drugs. So another reason that I see obvious is the fact that we still have a lot of and this is upsetting, a lot of waste in research. If you remember, 10 years ago, we had this publication about the waste in research, and was the moment when we realized that billions of dollars and euros were invested in research that was not meaningful for patients groups. So from that moment, now in 2020, a lot of things improved. I should recognize that. But still, we have academic institutions, we have pharma companies. If you check this website that is here on the right, and you will see that a lot of important companies are not, and institution academics in Europe, France, Netherlands even, they are not reporting research results. That means that we have still waste in research. And that means that it's for us mandatory to engage in research, to revise research protocols, to see how the clinical trials are designed, and be part of the funding process requests, because there you can prioritize. But research engagement, as you can imagine, means a lot of high level of scientific understanding. It's not easy. So what I would do as a patient organization, if there are patient organizations here, I will try first to build channels. I think all of us, we start on Facebook. And this is very good opportunity to build an ecosystem, to build a network that is making sense, and create channels, efficient channels to transmit, to communicate and teach people science. Our network structure is formed by nodes, hubs, and cores, and this is allowing us this continuous training. Sorry. Okay. So hubs are the essential ones, are the ones that drive national activities and connect the core with the simple patients. And like this, we reach a lot of people across the countries in Europe, because you know that in Europe we have this challenge. We are many countries and we speak a lot of languages. So I think this challenge can be also in other parts of the world. Now, how I teach science in MPNE, well, it's a long story, but I will make it short. It's a mixture of daily discussion on articles, conference news, on our private, online, and highly moderated forum. We combine teaching methods. I mean, people should not get bored. And adults are learning differently. Everybody is preferring a different way to hear about that. And science is not easy, as we know. So videos, webinar, podcasts, we run the term of the day post series. That means bits of information, like is here, given in small bits, it's more digestible, you know, and people remember, repeat all the time, and people will learn. Have in mind different targeted audience. So you speak to a patient advocate that is expert. This one has a high level of knowledge, and this one has other needs. And the patient advocate, and the simple patient. That person is concerned only with himself or herself. And go for the best in the field. Don't make compromises. Just go for high impact factor journals. I just display here the Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine, Nature, and you have the conferences, of course, that are generals. Is the conferences organized by cancer oncology societies in Europe and in US, and also the one that are cancer specific or precision medicine. I think that there is a big conference about where you can participate, because at the end, the NTRK fusion will not be the one that you will experience during your journey. You will have also others alteration in the genome. What was my last thing was that get involved in big research programs. We have in Europe, for example, Horizon 2020, but I think in US there are a lot of other tools to fund grants and to join big consortium, because there you have a word on the research. Otherwise, if you are not equal partner, you cannot channel the research. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I give the floor to Upal. Upal, you are there?
Yes, I am, and
okay.
I can start sharing my slides. Violeta, thank you so much for.
I tried to be fast, but I think I was not so fast like I wish. So success.
Thank you for a fantastic presentation, and it tees up very well with what I'm going to be talking about. So my name is Dr. Upal Basu Roy, and I'm the Vice President of Research at LUNGevity Foundation, and we are a sister patient advocacy group very similar to what Dr. Moore talked about. We're a sister patient advocacy group to GO2 Foundation. And I trained as a scientist as well. So my PhD was in colon cancer research, and my postdoc was in pediatric cancer research, and I spent a lot of time in the lab. And I'm personally affected by lung cancer. My aunt and my uncle, I lost 2 of my family members to lung cancer, so there's a personal connection. And I'm extremely passionate about the role of research in science and patient advocacy, so delighted to be speaking to all of you. So before I actually sort of get into the meat of my presentation, and again, full disclosure, I'm a geek. I love data, I love numbers, and that's what makes me a research advocate, because that's where I feel that my power is. So I just wanted to remind everyone about NTRK alterations in cancer, and in lung specifically. That's the group I represent. And I actually really sort of, I don't like that word rare, because it really diminishes that individual patient. Every patient is important. And I think rare is just a very biological construct that we use. But I think we need to remind us that rare is not, it doesn't really define the patient. And as you can see on the left side, the statistics that I show about NTRK positive lung cancer, it is very rare. But when you look at this entire collective picture, it's our entire community which is affected. Which then sort of brings me to the meat of my presentation. why is interpreting research in science important? And I'm going to talk about 5 different phases, and Violeta talked a little bit about this, but let's keep in mind that all of these different 5 phases are incredibly important. So whatever appeals to you as a patient or as a caregiver, that's totally fine. I don't think any of these levels are more or less important. I think all of these levels are incredibly important. I think from the individual patient level, and I think this is incredibly important, I think if you're attuned to research in science and talking about it, then you can ensure that you advocate for the best care possible. And if you're a parent to a child who has cancer, I think this becomes even more important because you will be your child's biggest advocate. And I think, talking about science and research is important from a family community perspective because you need to be also involving your community, your family in your journey. Keep in mind that your family, your community is going to be supporting you. They are the ones who might be providing childcare when you have to go to a clinical trial appointment. And at the same time, if you're doing fundraising, you need to engage your community. So for you to be conversant in the language of research and science is very important. And then third, communicating with your care team. And this is incredibly, incredibly important. First, you need to be able to talk about your disease, your needs. I think it's incredibly important that your needs are important. I think I think Brianne was saying, she did not get a lot of help from her oncologist, but she got a lot of help from the NTRK community. And the reason why that sometimes happens is the doctor that you're going to may just see one NTRK patient. Because it's a rare cancer. It's first of all, the cancer is rare, the alteration is rare. So the chances that you may be the only patient your doctor sees is actually quite high. So this is a great opportunity for you to educate your doctor and to get them interested in NTRK patients. Then on the right side, what I have is advocacy at slightly higher levels. You're going to be talking to researchers. Now, Violeta talked about going to conferences. It's extremely important to be talking to researchers. And I think getting them interested in NTRK research, that's meaningful to the NTRKER'S. And Amy mentioned something which is very important. And Violeta touched upon this as well. We can be spending millions of dollars on research, but if that research is not meaningful to the NTRKER'S community, then that research really doesn't answer questions that are important for you. So you should be able to help researchers prioritize and be equal partners in those research projects. And finally, advocacy with policymakers and regulators. This is incredibly important. I know I'm talking to a global audience. In the US, the FDA is not involved in drug regulatory decisions. They're just involved in approving a drug, but they're not involved in access and pricing. But in a lot of other countries, access and pricing go hand in hand. So you might be working in a country which has a formal health technology assessment program, which you might know as an HTA. So you as a patient or a caregiver, you may be involved to advocate for getting that particular drug approved in your country. And then you'll be talking about, the language of science and research. So hopefully through this slide, I've given you sort of a flavor of all the different aspects of why interpreting science and research is important. And I just want to focus on just 2 quick things. How we at LUNGevity, we approach this. We have a variety of techniques. We have a website, we have videos, we have in-person conferences, we have these cheat sheets that we share with patients. So we have a lot of this collateral because we firmly believe that educated patients and caregivers are empowered and engaged. So our goal really here is to create a community of patients. I apologize, my slides are not advancing the way I had planned them to. Let's see if this works. Yes, it does. Okay, so our goal is to actually build communities of empowered and engaged patients. And finally, in the last 1-2 minutes of my talk, I do want to just focus a little bit on 2 aspects of advocacy. One is personal and one is accessing clinical trials. And if you think of an NTRK's journey and you look at this very simplistic pathway, you're like, yes, this is the way, a lung cancer patient's journey looks like. But in reality, it's incredibly, incredibly complex because you're dealing with pre-diagnosis, diagnosis, and treatment and the financial aspects of a diagnosis. So it's incredibly complex. So hopefully in the last part of my talk, I can convince you what are some of those tools that you need to have in your toolbox when you're talking to your doctor, or if you're a caregiver, what you need to be talking to advocate for the best care possible. And I've divided it up into two sections. What's that first treatment, when you're having discussions with your doctor? These are some of the things that you need to be keeping in mind. Is it your child that you're advocating for? Is it yourself that you're advocating for? In which tissue is the cancer arising from? And of course, biomarker testing. And then of course, you get the first drug. And then what's next, which is equally important. And again, the same types of questions. And again, one of the things I do want to stress here on, which I talked a little bit about, is that second opinion. Do not hesitate to get a second opinion. And here is where you will be conversant in science, is because of the fact that your original doctor you might be that only patient, or your child might be that only patient with NTRK mutations. So you may want to seek out an NTRK expert. And again, on the right side, some questions that you need to be talking about to your doctor when you're thinking about that next treatment. And finally, I'll end my presentation with a little bit of discussion on clinical trials, and this was something which was requested by the NTRKER'S. This is an incredibly important part of any cancer patient's journey. And I'm just giving you a very quick snapshot. Did a quick search on clinicaltrials.gov to look at the number of NTRK trials. And as you can see, they tend to be sort of North America focused or Western Europe focused. So we don't have a lot of trials available all throughout the world. And I hope that this changes with time. But again, on the right side, these are some of the questions that you should be talking to your doctor about, proactively having those discussions about clinical trials. And finally, leave you with a little bit of a tool here. If you're looking for clinical trials, I've just given you two websites here. On the left side, you have two lung cancer focused clinical trial websites. One is from LUNGevity Foundation and the other is from GoTo Foundation. Now, these are very lung cancer focused websites. But on the right side, what you have is the WCG Center Watch website. This is for all diseases, all cancers, and this is a global website for searching for a clinical trial. So this is highly recommended. And last but not least, my big message for you all is, yes, different rare oncogenes, but shared goals. And Amy talked a little bit about this. When you look on my second slide, I showed you the NTRK, sort of the NTRK landscape. But if you look at the red landscape on the left or the ROS1 landscape on the right, they are really identical. Shared goals. And I think this is the big takeaway message that I have for you, is that search about information for your cancer, learn, educate yourself, but most importantly, share, form a community and collaborate across different groups, because this is the only way we will cause a revolution. And I love the word patient revolution, because we do need a revolution in the patient community. And with that, thank you very much for your time, and looking forward to the discussion.